One of my favorite things to talk about on this channel is Pixar, because they never seem to disappoint. But even the kings and queens of animation, as skilled as they are, aren't immune to slip-ups and mistakes. Since the arrival of Toy Story in 1995, Pixar has been Walt Disney's golden child, and for good reason. They have released banger after banger. It's important to note that nearly every single short or feature-length animated film the company has produced has been a triumph for the world of computer animation technology. Most of the time, it seems that Pixar, and all the incredible artists involved in said projects, could do no wrong. Although they may be a powerhouse of colorful storytelling and emotionally driven characters, perfect Pixar is not without its fair share of mistakes. Pixar released a quote, blooper reel at the end of a few films like Toy Story 2, but we are talking bigger mistakes and shortcomings that flew under the radar of most viewers. Some of them could be computer glitches, graphical limitations, or common accidents or errors in research and delivery. Hey man, they are brilliant over at Pixar, but they are still human, so it's important to note that we are not pointing them out to call them out on their mistakes. We are more so calling them out so we can dive deeper and learn about our favorite films. Now that being said, let's take a look at every major mistake in the Pixar movies, both big and small. Now there are hundreds, so we can't name them all, so we'll stick to the big ones. I'm Joey C. Let's go! Let's dive into the 1995 classic, the original G in the Pixar lot, Toy Story. Now to be fair, this mistake was caused by graphical and technological limitations of the 90s. But regardless, it's still something that everyone can see if they take a closer look. In the classic, Woody, Buzz, and all their friends can actually only blink one eye at a time. And now that I've noticed it, I literally can't not notice it. It's a curse, I tell ya. It happens just quick enough that you could barely see it. But Buzz, for instance, does it in full view when he first comes to life. This next one is probably one of my favorite entries on the list. What if I told you that Buzz Lightyear swears in Toy Story? You would say, no way, man. Well, let me explain. This definitely went unnoticed for a very long time, and it's incredibly subtle, but not completely unnoticeable. When Buzz Lightyear first comes to life, right after the blinking situation we explained above, he says out loud, quote, blast, this will take weeks to repair. Pay very close attention to when he says blast. His voice says blast, but his lips say damn. It seems to me that Buzz was gonna swear in the original cut in the movie, in a Disney film no less. Fortunately for all the impressionable kids, they later changed it to what it is now, blast. Moving on to Monsters Inc., we will return to Toy Story later on. This isn't so much an animation mistake, but it's an inconsistency which is still a mistake regardless. Later on in the movie, we are shown that Boo's laugh is 10 times more powerful than her screams in the monster world. But, if you notice when she is taken back to the factory, her laugh is only powerful when it's convenient to the movie or for comedic purposes. Explain that, Pixar. All I'm saying is that if her laugh is strong enough to cause a citywide blackout, then why does it only knock out a few lights in the factory? Is there some sort of kid laugh force field around the factory? A no-laugh zone, no less? I'm digging too deep into this. I'm a grown man, I promise. Taking a swim to Finding Nemo. See what I did there? I will admit, this catch didn't hit me until just recently. But let's discuss this. How in the absolute heck is there a light in the whale's mouth when Marlin and Dory are swallowed? Literally, like is there a light fixture lodged back in the blowhole? God, beautiful animation certainly makes for great discussion. Bring this up at your next party. I can't believe I never questioned this situation. I just went along with it as I'm sure millions of other people did. Realistically, it should be pitch black in the mouth, but I'll let it go. I'm getting too worked up over this. Come to think about it, asking these questions is probably why I'm still single. This one I really thought was great, and especially interesting to find out, and I think it's a rare known mistake that turned into one of those happy accidents. Soaring into the intro to Toy Story 2, there's a fun story about how it was created, but in order to explain it, we have to go back to Ant Island from A Bug's Life. Planet Z in the Buzz Lightyear video game is actually an altered version of Ant Island's riverbed, and the asteroids floating about are not asteroids at all. They're suspended stones with the water removed. This particular mistake was caused by an accident in the animation process, but the filmmakers involved thought it was a cool effect, so they kept it in the movie, and the rest was history. It certainly makes for a wild backstory. Traveling all the way to France with Pixar's Ratatouille, the film was a fun, food-filled adventure through the world of French cuisine, which on paper seems like a weird topic to make a movie about, but it all worked out. Anyways, though the material in the movie was thoroughly researched, there were one or two mistakes in the animation department. One of the most obvious mistakes was Colette's vanishing helmet. The intense assistant chef absolutely rocks her look with the leather jacket and motorcycle, but for some reason we only see her helmet once and she never wears it again. I might be looking too deep into this, but who cares, man? I'm writing this script, and all I'm saying is the helmet just disappears. Let's move on. Back to 95 in Toy Story, we see a mistake that only true Dino buffs will catch. That particular Dino lover will notice that Rex isn't exactly the premier predator. At first glance, he seems scary. He's got some big feet, sharp teeth, and he's rather large. But if you look a bit closer, you'll notice a biological inaccuracy. Rex only has 3 fingers on his hand, and a real T-Rex only has 2. Basically pointless and easy to miss, but it's still fun to talk about with your fellow nerds. Heading back to the wonderful Bug's Life, which I don't think is appreciated enough, but anyways, we see an insect bar. I don't know how, and on top of that, they have a supply of blood to serve their mosquito patrons. I don't understand that either, but moving on. This bar scene makes a pretty large mistake regarding the mosquitoes. As I just looked up on Wikipedia, it's the female mosquitoes that bites and sucks blood. And the voice from this tipsy mosquito is obviously male. Of course, it's funny to hear a mosquito order a Bloody Mary and then fall on the floor drunk, but we're still gonna point this one out. Saying Mr. Potato Head is a great addition to the toy lot of Toy Story would be an understatement. He really shines with his sarcasm and attitude issues. Since we've known him, he's always had a rather large nose, mustache, and a big smile. That being said, it seems like one of the animators might have skipped a step when disassembling their potato pal. If you watch really closely in the original Toy Story, the Potato Man's eyebrows vanish when his eyes are removed. I don't know why, it's not like his eyebrows are attached to his eye part. I don't know, maybe I'm asking too many questions. I better stop, I don't want the Men in Black to come knocking on my door. Taking a look back at Finding Nemo, I am absolutely calling shenanigans on this one because Pixar seems to be pulling from the SpongeBob method to make jellyfish intimidating. The scene with the jellyfish forest is beautiful, yes, but also chilling. So I thought it was silly to see that the jellyfish tentacles shock instead of sting, and boy is there a big difference between the two. Maybe it was to help sell the idea that they were being stung, but they added electrifying sound effects. Not only is this a travesty to jellyfish biology, but it's just an odd change and I want justice. You know, we forgot to mention anything about Up, and I have a bone to pick with this movie. There is no way this man made his house float with the balloons. But let's be honest, Up is one of Pixar's most loved films, but it has the most ridiculous plot lines. I'm not saying all those balloons weren't beautiful, it's just a huge mistake. Hear me out. There are 10,927 balloons in all the flying sequences and over 20,000 in other shots. But that would still not be enough to fly a house, for God's sake. Pixar even researched this themselves and decided to go with what was more visually pleasing. FYI, it would take over 105,000 balloons to get the house off the ground. But that's out of the question for animation. Remember that scene in Toy Story when Mr. Potato Head said, "Look, I'm Picasso," with his face slanted? I never got that as a child, but now it's hysterical and apparently spawned a mildly popular meme. But there's also a big mistake hidden just frames away. Right after the words, "ya hockey puck," we cut to the toys getting ready for the staff meeting. In the corner, you can see Mr. Potato Head's face has rearranged itself. Now, unless that man has super speedy limbs, this is a mistake that made it into the movie. Gypsy from The Bug's Life is just a fantastic character, but her appearance has some inconsistency with her coloration and namely the spots on her wings. It's a minor error, but the OCD that live amongst us, me included, will definitely catch. The spots of Gypsy's wings change throughout the film, and it's pretty obvious, though we are willing to let it slide due to it being Pixar's second film. Speaking of Gypsy's wings, Gypsy is obviously a female moth, but only the mates of her species have wings. Another factor worth noting is that though her name is Gypsy, she is not a gypsy moth, but rather a hybrid of a buckeye butterfly and a polyphemus moth. God, I can't believe I'm researching this. It's an animated moth, for God's sakes. Let it go, Joe. Taking a look at the mean and feisty Randall from Monsters, Inc., this one took a while for anyone to catch. In the beginning scenes of the movie, we were introduced to the scare floor and the monsters who work there. All of their names are listed on a big screen tallying up how many kids they scare. They seem to all be listed by their last name. For example, Sully is listed as Sullivan. But if that's the case, why is Randall still listed as Randall and not Boggs? There is possibly another Boggs on the scare floor, but I'm willing to bet the filmmakers just didn't want to confuse the kids. Who the hell is Boggs, man? Flying back into Up, the monster of Paradise Falls is easily the most colorful character in Up, and we love her for it. Kevin is the squawky, long-legged bird friend of Carl and Russell that they encounter on their adventures, and is subject to a few funny lines when it's discovered that she has a nest full of eggs, but there is a mistake in regard to her design. Kevin was designed after the male Himalayan mono pheasant, a small but colorful bird from Nepal. Kevin's coloration is based on the male of the species, not the female. The bright feathers are used to attract mates of the wild, and once again, I can't believe I'm researching this. This entry made me giggle a bit. When Buzz and company arrive at Al's toy barn in an attempt to save Woody, Mr. Potato Head delivers the witty line, "We're not preschool toys, Slinky," but he is in fact a toy for preschoolers. Mr. Potato Head is a toy from Playschool, a brand that specializes in making toys for young children, namely preschoolers. Perhaps they knew this at Pixar and threw it in as a joke, but I'm just going to believe that this is an inaccuracy just so I can add it to my script. Moving on to a newer classic film, 2012's Brave, which is a wonderful and fun adventure of a movie. We see Merida, a warrior princess. Early in the film, we see Merida's mom try and separate the princess from the warrior by enforcing some medieval outfits before presenting her to the sons of a neighboring clan. And this specific outfit has one major flaw. If this is truly medieval Scotland, the corset Merida wears should not exist. They weren't invented until the 17th century. Though it's a great symbol for her mother's suffocating grip, it's not so historically accurate. Back to animation errors in Toy Story, the sequel this time, we have quite a small and pointless mistake, but a mistake nonetheless. When Ham cuts the TV off after a commercial for Al's Toy Barn, pay close attention to the screen. If one looks hard enough, one will notice the absence of Ham and Rex in the TV's glass. Maybe not the biggest error, but with Pixar's reputation for detail, it's pretty fun to take a deeper look at. Maybe Ham and Rex are vampires. Going more recent this time, let's take a look at 2017's Coco. The inside of Miguel's house changes constantly. You could make some artistic argument that this was done to reflect the internal turmoil of the character, representing the passing of time or whatever, but I would call it a mistake and inconsistent that nearly slipped my senses. The colors of the stones and the decor changes quite often, and once you see it, you'll always notice it. In Bug's Life, Hopper, the grass hopper, meets an adorable yet terrifying demise at the beaks of some baby birds. It sounds wildly morbid for a kid's movie, but anywho, this mistake is not the animation but the design of the chicks, and we have a few issues. Firstly, the chicks are the wrong species. The bird is a chaffinch, and her babies appear to be chickens. Secondly, the chicks are covered in hair or fur where their natural counterparts would be bald, and arguably more upsetting. Perhaps this was done to save time, or due to technical boundaries, but it's another obvious mistake that made it to the big screen. Man, we haven't talked about Cars at all. Cars, I'm coming for you now, baby. Before Lightning McQueen falls out of the end of Mac's trailer, you can see Snot Rod and one of the other cars running alongside the trailer. But when the camera moves to show Lightning coming off the trailer, you can see alongside the trailer in the background, and the cars are now missing. The camera switches back to the front of Mac, and the cars are back alongside him. Where did they go? Heading back to Finding Nemo, we have one mistake that really tickles my feathers, man. Nigel is an American pelican with an Australian accent, and I have no idea why. Maybe he moved? We can understand why this choice was made, but it's still an error in species. Nigel the pelican, who takes Marlin and Dory to the dentist office to save Nemo, is a brown pelican, a species only found in the Americas, not Australia. Australian pelicans are much whiter and have a simpler color palette, so it was obviously a design choice and not really a flaw. I still find it strange to know that Pixar intentionally used the wrong species for this particular setting. I just can't shake it off. If you're gonna have the Great Barrier Reef and the Sydney Opera House, populate the environment accordingly, man. And finally, we have made it to the final entry on the list, and as an avid gamer, I had to point this out. In Toy Story 2, we see probably one of the most best intros to a movie in animation history. We see Ham playing the Buzz Lightyear game on a Super Nintendo. And I hate to be this guy, but there is no way that the SNES could handle such a high-performing game. It's a 16-bit console, man. No way that's 16 bits. God, I'm heated. The nerd inside me really comes out inside these videos. I promise I'm pretty cool. Ladies and gentlemen and everybody else in between, you made it to the end of the video. What did you think of these mistakes in Pixar movies? Did we notice anything that you didn't? If so, let us know in the comments below. And as always, everybody, thanks for watching.